tools and their transformative impact that has revolutionized our approach to tasks, to everything actually, in the way we do things. So it is crucial that we develop insights to what AI tools can accomplish, especially for efficiency, effectiveness, creativity, and productivity. And these are, you will be able to utilize to AI tools to augment your own intelligence. And I know there are a few in the audience who might sort of smirk at that. Some of us do not agree that AI can match the human intelligence, and perhaps they are right, and improve our quality of work. So we have to develop confidence as educators to navigate the challenges. There are many, and there will be other sessions to talk about challenges that we see. But the opportunities, nevertheless, are far more, and those are that perhaps we should keep an eye on. So in this session, you will have an awareness about AI tools, but that is not enough. You have to know how to use and for what purpose to use, so that you can encourage AI to work effectively with you, not against you. And so we hope to provide you that opportunity so you can relate your tasks. And I see that Brent will briefly touch upon the different ways you can use it as an educator. And of course, there'll be detailed sessions later on each area. So, but with the vast majority of tools that become available, now also is an issue of how do you assess what is more effective for what. So it's a typical, like you go to a shopping mall and the amount of shampoos that you see sort of drive you crazy, and yet you have to make a decision. So in some ways, it is both troublesome, but very helpful in the end. So our agenda is for today, I'm sorry, I'll move on, is about exploring AI tools, classifying and reviewing tools by function, and a bit about the AI integration experience. Now to our remarkable expert, Brent. We're very, very thankful to you to find the time. And I've been following your speaking engagements on LinkedIn and from other universities. And I see you are much coveted and are demanded. And I am so thankful that you could find time to be with us today. You are a university lecturer and a researcher about the American University of Armenia. You're also the director of the Sovereign Center for Teaching and Learning. So there we have a common connection. And you have a doctorate in education from Kansas and a master's degree from University of Nebraska and a bachelor's degree in. And your degrees all are in different areas about education, like instructional technology, human-computer interactions, and so on. And the education is on adult learning, so that makes you an ideal candidate for the job you are in. You, of course, have speaking engagements. You have lots of books and articles and blogs. You have worked for over 25 years. And I was looking at your bio, and you have spent another 26 years in the army. And God knows you don't look it. So after this session, I will have to ask you, what do you do? And so we are you actually, there were a couple of times when we needed some help with video production, and I see that is also your specialty. And you also talk about student engagement and instructional designing and so on. But now you say that now, since the launch of AI, I have put myself to improve the education experience for all with Gen AI, and I think that is commendable. So over to you without much ado. Please, you can share the slides because you're also the co-host. Right now, we have 178 participants, but some 1,200 have registered from 100 Pakistani universities and another 200 from 35 international universities. And you will see that as the session goes on, more people will keep on joining. So we have 183 right now. Over to you, Brent.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm very honored to have been asked to give this presentation, to speak for all the people here in Pakistan. So this is a great opportunity for me as well, because I'm definitely working to try and reach people throughout the world, because I do view this as a revolutionary time within education. This is something that is affecting all of us at every single grade level, not just because this is important information so that we can get a job, because most jobs now are requiring some aspect of AI, but also just to enhance our own capabilities, whether that's for research or just for trying to get information in general. This is a powerful thing that we really have to be a part of. So I appreciate the time in going through and doing all this. So I'm going to share my screen now so that I can bring up my PowerPoint, and then we can get started here. Okay. So yeah, to start off with, I want to make sure that everyone sees that I am available. One of the big things that I'm trying to always push is that all of us need to come together to try and enhance the way that academia is addressing this issue. So that means that we do need to form different communities of practice, different organizations. I love the fact that this is a certification course. So that means it's a process where we're coming together to learn about this. So definitely connect with me on YouTube. I'm also on LinkedIn, Facebook. We need to connect so that we can better learn from one another. So I strongly encourage you to do that as well. Before I go through and talk about some different specific tools, I have to make sure that everyone is at least on the same wavelength dealing with AI literacy. Now, I know that if you're going through the certification process, you've already had a course or a class on AI literacy, but I want to make sure that you're seeing this the way that I put this together. So I wrote a book recently about the AI literacy imperative, and I did a lot of research on different aspects of AI and what's considered AI literacy, and it was all over the place, a lot of information. So what I tried to do is bring it together and make it easy to understand for instructors, because if it's not organized well, then it's difficult for me. So that's the mentality for this. So I've broken AI literacy down into 4 different sections: awareness, capability, knowledge, and critical thinking. 4 different aspects, but they work together very strongly. So I want to just quickly go over this so that we can make sure that we're all following along and understanding this. So the first part here deals with awareness. So in awareness, we have to understand that AI is all around us, and it's being integrated in more and more things that we interact with. So that's a key aspect, that, hey, it's actually in dating apps, it's in search engines, it's in word processors. It's going to become more and more difficult to get away from AI because it's going to be integrated into so many things. So that's an important thing, just to have an awareness of that. Along with that, we need to know that this is affecting society, both in good ways and in bad ways. We need to be aware of this so that we can address these things and we can affect them, so that whether we want them to be integrated or not, it's a conscious decision and it isn't just something that happens. But we won't be able to address it if we don't have at least some initial awareness. The next one, capability. This is important to understand that all AI is not the same. Usually when we talk about AI, we sort of address it as some abstract thing, but there's many different types of AIs, there's many different tools. So we need to have an understanding of that so that we can use the right tool for the right situation, the right application. Another big part of this is prompt engineering skills. So this is really important because this helps us in formulating a question. Now, some people like to make it really complicated and say, oh yeah, prompt engineering, that's a major deal and it takes really a bunch of special skills. Well, it is a skill in itself, and it does take some work to develop. But the big thing is prompt engineering is basically being able to ask the right type of question. So that's a skill in itself, of understanding, well, what is the issue? What is it that I want? And then formulating an advanced prompt so that I can get the very best result from the AI. I'll give you some examples of that as I go through this. So prompt engineering skills, very important. The next one here, all can now access and use AI. So we need to have knowledge that everyone has access. There are many free AIs, so that means that everyone can access them. Of course, people still need to have electricity and computers in order to be able to do this. But we have to have this understanding that students are using AI. They already are. The majority of students are. But that doesn't mean that they know how to use it correctly. That doesn't mean that they know how to do it effectively or ethically. So it's important for us to learn and understand so that we can incorporate it and use it in the right way and set up our students for success. The next one here, data security and safety. We have to be sure that we know what's going on with our information when we put it into an AI. All AIs are not created equal. Some are very good and safe AIs. Others are on the fringes and will reuse your data. So it's important to read the terms of service and understand, have a knowledge of how our data is actually being used. And then, of course, there's deep fakes and scams. I've created something called the trap test that I'll talk about here in a little bit, but it's important to know that, hey, deep fakes and scams, they are being created with AI and they'll continue to be more so. So we have to have this AI literacy in order to fight against it, in order to not be scammed, to not be deceived. And we need everyone to develop this AI literacy skill so that we can prevent this from happening. The next one here, critical thinking. Results must be evaluated. We have to understand that just because we get information from this AI, from a computer, it doesn't mean it's correct. Even if everything is perfect and we get a great result from the AI, we should still verify it. If I'm talking to a subject matter expert and I get their information, I'm still going to check it. I'm not going to just blindly follow it. In the same way, we need to view AI that it should always be checked. We have to be careful of things like hallucinations, where the AI is just trying to answer a question, so it'll fill in information, sometimes confidently. But we have to understand that, yes, we should always be checking the information. So that's an important part of critical thinking. Along with that comes things such as ethics, bias, and over-reliance. We have to understand that every single AI will have some bias associated with it. I mean, just think if the AI comes from the United States, well, there's probably going to be some bias towards the United States. If the AI is built from China or from a South American country, they're all going to be slightly slanted in some way, and that's bias. That's okay. We just have to understand, have this awareness that that exists, so that we can take that into consideration whenever we get a response from the AI. So that's important. Other things such as ethics are also important in that we have to be thinking, well, what is the right way to use the AI? Students need to know this so that they don't violate academic integrity, but then also we need to know about when it is appropriate to use. Are there issues associated with copyright? What are the ways that this information is being used? Is it okay? Is it appropriate? These are things to consider. Over-reliance is another major issue that's going to be important more and more, in that we have to think, should we be using the AI for everything? Are we going to become so over-reliant that we might lose skills? Will it prevent us from gaining new skills? This is an important thing, because if we rely on the AI too much to a point where we forget certain things or we lose certain capabilities, we have to be okay with that. So it needs to be a conscious decision that we purposely do, as opposed to losing this capability and then realizing afterwards that, oh, well, maybe we shouldn't have lost that. So again, it takes purposeful thought. So these four elements here, AI literacy, it's important for us to retain that understanding and have this information and develop it within ourselves so that we can help our students. Again, just a quick little overview of AI literacy. Now, I had a question here as far as uh, people's training dealing with AI. So if we could bring up and launch that poll, there's a question there. We're talking about if you have received actual training before. I'm very interested if this is your first time going through and receiving training, or if you've already received it from your university, at least in some way. Anything that's been organized, I'm very interested in that. Can we launch that poll, Gohar? If not, we can come back to it. Okay, there we go. So here's the poll, exploring AI tools. Question one, have you had any training on AI? And then the second question along there, do you use any AI tools for your work? So that's an additional thing. Okay, things are coming in. Interesting, interesting. looks like a majority of people haven't had any actual type of training on AI. And as far as do you use any AI tools for your work, a majority have, 76%. That's very interesting in itself. Even though people haven't had training, they're still using it. So that's powerful there. Yeah, one of the big things that I'm pushing is that everyone needs to have this type of training, to include the faculty, to include students, as well as staff, because they're going to be using AI as well, just as indicated here, even without the training. So we need to make sure that they have proper training so that it can be used effectively and ethically as well. All right, great. Thank you, everyone, for submitting that poll. There it is for you to see. Okay, we'll move on. So first, I'm going to talk about some popular AI tools. So these are the tools that are the most popular, but this is interesting in itself as well, right? So we have what's called the big three. So these are the big three popular AI tools that are available for everyone to use. The first one is ChatGPT, which is what most people are aware of. And what's interesting about this with ChatGPT is that I've been to many conferences, many presentations where people start to say the word chat GPT and they express it as if they're meaning all AIs, right? Instead of saying generative AI, they say chat GPT. Well, of course, chat GPT is just one of the AI models that are out there, the AI tools. So it's just one of them. There's plenty others, but a lot of people aren't even aware of the other ones, and they just go to only ChatGPT. It's important for us to understand that there are multiple of different AI tool languages like this, so that we can get a benefit on having access to these different tools. So the first one, the big one, is ChatGPT. Of course, that's from OpenAI. We have Microsoft Copilot. Now, Microsoft Copilot is actually using the same language that ChatGPT uses, but it's actually more advanced. So it's using a more advanced aspect of it with additional layers that Microsoft puts upon it. So that's why it functions a bit differently than ChatGPT. Now with ChatGPT, it's structured a little bit differently, because with ChatGPT, you have the free version and then you also have a paid version, right? Now, it was in the past where the free version was GPT 3.5, and then the paid version was GPT 4 as far as the language models. Now, that's all changed as of yesterday, because everything is going lightning fast, right? And that now both the paid version and the free version use what's called GPT 4.0, right? The letter O standing for Omni. So it's using this very new advanced language that has so many more capabilities. And so now you have access to that both in the free version and in the paid version. Now, in the free version, the limitation there is that it's limited to how much you can use it, and then it'll revert back to the older language of GPT 3.5. So you have some limitations there. So again, things are changing very quickly. And then now for the third one here is Google Gemini. It was called Google Bard, and then it recently changed its name to Google Gemini. Lots of capabilities. All three of these are very powerful and they have lots of capabilities, but sometimes they function a bit differently from one another. So it's important to have some experience with each one of them, and we'll talk a little bit about this as well. So those are the big three, the main ones for you to use, freely available, but there are some other big AIs that I want to bring to your attention as well. These are the additional ones here, and these are sort of the other big three, right? We have Claude, Meta AI, and Perplexity. Claude recently came out with a new language model, and it was very powerful, even more powerful than GPT-4. So for a while, it was sort of the reigning king. I tested it quite a bit, and it is very powerful. Now, the thing with Claude is they also have a free version, but it's very limited in that you can only access it for a small amount of interactions, and then it'll ask you to join the pro plan. So there's some limitations there. With Meta AI, very powerful, and it's not as popular initially because it doesn't have this type of interface like ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, or Google Gemini, and because it doesn't have a search engine. But the thing is that Meta AI is actually going to quickly become being used by a majority of people without them even realizing it. Why? Because Meta AI, these are the people that own Facebook, they're integrating their AI into every single application that they have, meaning that it's going to be fully functional within Facebook, fully functional within WhatsApp, fully functional within everything else that they own. So you won't even be realizing it, but you'll be using it when you want to add an image, when you want suggestions on how to respond to a text. It'll all be there within that Meta AI. So it's going to be actually more popular than those other ones. Because again, you have to think about Facebook's reach, Meta's reach. It's astronomical, even more than Google. And then we have Perplexity. Perplexity is very powerful. It's another large language model, and it can do a lot of different things. It's very powerful and it's free as well. It's sort of like ChatGPT in that it has a free version as well as a paid version. So I strongly encourage you to look through that one as well because it can do a lot of things. Again, it uses the same language as ChatGPT as far as the GPT model, but it has additional capabilities that it does with it because it's more fine-tuned. So a lot going on there. Okay, I have another poll question for you. So this is interesting in itself. And again, I found this out by researching for this presentation. What I just showed you here are the most popular ones that are out there that most people are using, most people have access to. But what do you think are the actual AIs, the most popular AIs after ChatGPT? What do you think are the most popular AIs that students are using, that actual students are using? So in the chat, I'd like you to just put in what you think, just type in which AI you think is the most popular for students. And this could be anywhere for elementary, high school, or college, university level. What do you think is the AI that most students use? Go ahead and put that in the chat. So again, don't say ChatGPT because of course that's a given, right? That's the by far the most popular. But what do you think is like the second or third most popular that students actually use? So please add that to the chat. I'll give you a second to do that. Okay, so this really surprised me because I thought for sure that second place would be something like Google Gemini, maybe some Meta thing, or maybe Claude or Perplexity. But in actuality, no, they weren't even on the list as far as what's popular with students. So this is what's actually popular with students. Character.ai, Quillbot, and Grammarly. Yeah, yeah, so those are the ones that are actually the most popular, the most used by students after ChatGPT. And you have to ask yourself, well, why are they used? Why are they so popular? And there's a couple different reasons why. For Grammarly, of course, that one is used at a lot of different educational institutions. At my university, this is given to students. They actually have pro plans for students, so they're able to use it. Now, what a lot of instructors don't realize is that Grammarly now is much more than just let me help you with correcting this word or the ending or something like that. No, it's a full-fledged AI tool now where it can completely rewrite a sentence. It can completely rewrite multiple sentences for you. So that's something to understand as well, that Grammarly now is a full-fledged AI tool. Quillbot is used by a lot of students to simply paraphrase. So hopefully it's not nefarious, but a lot of times it is used in an inappropriate way where they'll copy something from somebody else and then they'll simply put it into a Quillbot to paraphrase it so it doesn't come up as being plagiarized. In the same way, a lot of students will use it where they have an AI that created something for them. They'll put it into Quillbot so it can't be traced or it sounds less like an AI wrote it. Again, not all students are using it in that way, but a lot of students are. And again, I did research to try and figure that out. Character AI is something really interesting for us to think about because what character AI is, it's a full-fledged AI tool that students go to, and then they can either create or find an AI that's been made that can function as a character, right? So I could use an anime character, I could use Elon Musk, a celebrity, whoever I want, a philosopher, and now the AI will act as if it is that character, as if it is that person. So then I can pose questions to it. Let's say I pose a question to a philosopher, and it'll respond as if it is that philosopher. Students seem to really enjoy this type of engagement, this type of social interaction with it. So it's a powerful thing for us to consider as far as how we might implement things within our classroom as well. So there's a lot going on here with how it works. And again, A student could create their own AI character here or choose from a million different ones across many different categories of type of character. So that's really interesting that I found out going through and preparing for this one. Okay, so these are the big ones. And what I'm going to focus on is the big three and how we can use that. But before I go too deep into that, I wanted to be sure to share this with you. This is an infographic that I created. This is something that I made because I had a fair amount of instructors that were apprehensive. And I want to make sure to acknowledge that apprehension. The big thing to understand that all instructors need to know is that using AI in your classroom, integrating AI in your classroom is never an all or nothing thing. It's not I have to use it for everything or I don't use it. No, there's a huge continuum. And that's what this infographic is all about. The idea here is that you could use AI within your classroom a little bit, or you could use it a lot. You as the instructor need to be thinking about this and deciding how am I going to use it? When am I going to use it? Is it appropriate for me to use it? Is it not? When would be the most effective use of this AI? So again, we see sort of this going up in this continuum where we could start off by just demonstrating an AI result and then discussing about it. We could provide AI results for students, and then the students have to modify an AI result. We could use it in the classroom where now the instructor is observing and making sure that the students are using it correctly, but not give it as homework or assignment. That could be the next one where now some aspect of an assignment could be used with AI. We could have them work with it very heavily, but they have to declare it, or we could have them use AI on their own and they don't have to declare it. There's a huge spectrum. You have to be making these purposeful decisions as to when should I use it, when should I not. Now, the big thing that I will tell everyone here is that you need to be prepared to have reasons why, because more and more students are going to be pushing this aspect. They're going to be asking you directly, what do you mean I can't use AI to do this assignment? I'm going to be using AI when I graduate and I go to my job, so why can't I use it now? All right? So students will be asking that, so we need to be prepared. We need to have an answer ready and say, well, right now I want you to learn this foundational knowledge about this concept. We're going to learn it together individually, but we're going to do it without the AI first. And then on the next level, then we'll bring in an AI. Maybe later in the semester, we'll use AI for something. Be ready for a response and have clear expressions as to why we're doing it in this way. So again, be ready for that because that's an important thing. But the big thing, the big takeaway here is that it's the instructor that should be making the decisions as to when to use it, why to use it, and how to use it. Okay. Also, I want to be sure that you know that the CLT at FCCU, they have a huge directory of different AI tools that are available for you. This is a great resource, again, for writing, multimedia, teaching and learning, research, all sorts of different applications for these tools. And we're talking about a huge amount of tools, like 200 different tools and resources that are available for you. So please make sure that you know that this resource is there so that you can use it, so that you can go in, again, different tools that will be applicable for different ways that you want to use the AI in your classroom for education as well as for prepping for the class. I'm going to focus mainly on these three tools because now more and more, because of multimodality, these tools now have capabilities of creating and doing more things. So I'm going to focus mainly on these, but again, make sure you know that there's a resource of all these other tools to do even more specific things. What I'm going to cover is content creation, personalization, and assessment. So these are three main things that occur within a course. I'm going to talk about different ways that we can use AI with each part of these. Again, you're making the decision as to how you might use it, but what I want to be sure to express is that there are ways and possibilities of using AI for each part of this. So to begin with, we have overall course alignment, right? We have our SLOs, which is student learning outcomes. We have instructional strategies. We have assessment strategies. All of this put together deals with instructional design. And I put an image there of Bloom's revised taxonomy because that plays an important part here. With AI, we can address each part of this because AI can help us. And I want you to start to think of AI as another instructional designer. Now, I hope that at your educational institutions, you have an instructional designer. I had an instructional designer when I worked at Kansas State University, but now that I'm here at another university, I'm at the American University of Armenia, they don't have an instructional designer. So now everybody is relying on themselves or maybe through their peers. But now we have this tool, we have the AI that can fully function as a great instructional designer. So keep that in mind because we can ask the AI to function in that role and to help us with so many different aspects. The first example that I want to show you here is how we can use AI to create an example for us, right? When we're giving instruction, one of the key things is that we provide examples. We state what it is that we're talking about. We then explain it. And then what makes it really powerful is if we can provide some good examples for the students to understand. So let's say that I am teaching a writing course and I ask the AI to help me with that. So I ask it, I say, I give it this prompt. I say, please assume the role of a university student and write a short essay on air pollution in Armenia. Use dates and names to make it more impactful. Include in-text citations and reference lists. I'm instructing a freshman seminar class and want to give my students a short example essay so we can go over APA style. Notice the way that I'm formulating my advanced prompt here. There's different aspects of it's assuming a role. I'm giving it context. I'm giving it specifics. I'm giving it reasons as to why I'm asking this. So keep that in mind as you develop your prompt engineering skills as well. Now, when I give it this, the results that I get, and here, this is an example using ChatGPT 3.5, this is what I get. Now, this looks pretty interesting. This looks somewhat usable, right? Again, if I don't like it, I could ask the AI to change it, to modify it, give me multiple versions. What I have found is that a lot of instructors use this in a couple of different ways. One way, and this is the case for this one, they use it, this is talking to a lot of instructors here at my university, they'll use this as a way to show the students the problems with AI. So in this case, there are several different problems with the results. Everything that you see in red is incorrect. Everything in this case was incorrect because, hey, these are made up citations. This doesn't exist, right? Although it seems logical that this would exist, Armenian Environment Protection Agency. No, that's made up. That's completely false. So some instructors have used this as a way to start to have a discussion about AI literacy to showcase how an AI could be wrong and the importance of needing to go through and verify information. Now, that's one aspect of it. The rest of it is actually pretty good. This is very usable so that we could talk about different things that I want to show my writing class. This is a nice example that I could showcase to my students to have them see, hey, these are things to look for when you're writing, and this is the way to put things together. So again, different ways to use that example. Now, this was made with the free version of ChatGPT, and this was made before the new version of the language model. So that's why it created all these problems. But here's an interesting thing. I fed the exact same prompt to Copilot, to Microsoft Copilot, which is another AI. I fed it to it, and look for everything that's in red in this next one to show you all the things that are wrong. Ready? Nothing. There's nothing wrong with this. This is 100% correct. All the citations are correct. All the information is actually correct. So I went through and I checked everything, but that's interesting in itself that here I used a different AI and it was 100% correct. So you can see how different AIs might work differently. There might be a hallucination here, there might not be there. It's important for us to always verify. So that's key to make sure that we have the students understand that, again, part of their AI literacy in general. Now, the one thing you will notice here is that I gave it the exact same prompt. So I asked it to give me this information, this essay in a APA style format. This isn't APA. So it had problems with this. Again, different AIs will function differently. Now, I didn't go back. I could have gone back and say, no, it needs to be an APA format and try multiple times, and it will eventually give me the right answer. Again, keep that in mind, the differences in different tools. Next tool, or next example here, the importance of understanding that AI is a very powerful tool for many different things, whether it's content creation Or if we extend that a bit more and think about it as a way to help us with scaffolding and with personalization. Now that we have the AI, we can quickly and easily create additional content to help students that might be struggling, to help students that are advanced and need more instruction, but at a higher level, because we can adjust the information. So again, the AI is very powerful in being and helping us to do that. Here's an example. I posted this prompt. I say, please assume the role of a university professor and write a short essay on European football in Armenia. Ensure that it has a good introductory paragraph with a proper thesis and 3 main points. Leave out transitional sentences between the 3 main paragraphs containing the main points. Put a capital X in bold after the last sentence in each of those paragraphs where the transitional sentences should go. Do not add any titles or headings to any paragraphs within this essay. Leave out the conclusion paragraph. Do not add any icons, images, graphics, or emojis to this essay. I'm instructing a freshman seminar class, and I'm helping a particular student who needs more practice with transitional sentences and writing the summary paragraph. He is also really into European football, so I'm hoping this topic will also motivate him. Now, that key part there at the bottom is what I really want you to think about. I have a student, and this student needs some additional help. They need some more scaffolding. So I could quickly use this prompt, put it in there, and now it's going to give me an essay that I can give to the student. And again, this took, I mean, to actually write this prompt took me longer than the actual result from the AI. But now I can do this within seconds, create something specific to the student, create something that's personalized to that particular student that will help to motivate them, and then give that to them so that they can have this additional scaffolding, this additional practice to help them with that. So this is the result that I got, which is a very usable essay. And again, the places there in the X, that's where that student will then have to go in and put in the transitional sentence. So then now I can assess them on their transitional sentences. And you can see that this is something that could be done in class. It could be done out of class. The idea here is that they would also write the conclusion. So the way that we implement this is again, so many different possibilities, but it's very useful and it can really help us with personalizing information. And we can extend this to other areas where we can ask it to, hey, create a worksheet for me dealing with this topic, create a quiz for me dealing with this topic. It will do all that for you, again, within seconds. Another big example that I want to share with you is this idea of an AI simulator. So here I'm going to ask it to assume the role of a professional marketing executive whom I will be interviewing in order to gain a better understanding of what this professional industry is like. I will ask you one question at a time about your different experiences as a professional in this field. So I actually do this in that in my class, I teach professional communication. And in my class, I have my students actually go out into the real world and they have to find someone that is in their field, someone that they don't know. They have to find somebody in their field and they have to sit down and have a real interview with them. Now, we do a bunch of things in class to help prepare them, but then I also have them go through this AI simulator where they are acting out, they're role playing this with the AI to help them get practice in asking questions, in active listening. So they have to go through, ask a question, and then they have to see the response, incorporate that response in the next question, all these different things. So this functions really well. I just read this to you. This functions really well. It gives a lot of information. And then at the very end, I can ask it for feedback. I can say, hey, tell me what you thought overall, and it will go through and give a bunch of different strengths, areas to improve, overall feedback. It really helps in that it gives me this assessment. And what I've done in the past is if I had students go through this and then they had to share with me the results. So they would give me screenshots of, of them going through this, as well as within some of the AIs, you can also have it share the conversation. So it's just a link to make it that much easier. So this is a great way to help with that part as well. It's very powerful in that I've asked students what they thought of this. They really liked it. They really liked it and they actually wanted to do more of this because it gave them the ability to practice as many times as they wanted so that they could gain more confidence. So that's really impactful. I had one student say that they tried it 4 or 5 times and they changed the prompt so that it would be someone in different types of fields or at different levels. So that's very powerful in itself as well. What I also want to share now is that there was a big announcement that just came out yesterday from OpenAI. So OpenAI came out and they talked about their new language model that is everyone has access to. And with that, they've greatly increased your ability to actually speak to the AI, and it's going to respond to you in voice. So now you can have this whole rhetoric, you can have this whole dialogue where you're talking to the AI and it talks back in a conversational tone. That's the big part, is that it doesn't sound robotic. It sounds like a real person that's talking to you. So now this simulation could now be done not just by me typing, but it makes it more realistic because now I'm actually talking to this entity and it's talking back. So now I have to be able to ask the right questions and incorporate what they said. So that active listening becomes really important. So it's really powerful as far as now we've increased the emotional aspects of this. And by having more emotion, we can have more connections to the actual process, and it turns it into a real experience. Being able to actually create a real educational experience, that's really powerful because it's more than just data, it's more than just information. We want to be able to ingrain information within the person's mind so that they have real learning. And again, that the big thing that we're trying to accomplish with education is so that, hey, they learn it here in the classroom, and then they're actually able to apply it outside of the classroom. That transfer of knowledge, that's the real difficult thing. But by using AI in this way as a simulator, that really helps to sort of bridge the gap that much more by making this additional experience that's very realistic. So again, I strongly encourage you to also look into this as a possibility of AI implementation. Now, this next one I want to talk about dealing with critical thinking development. So this is a great example that comes from the country that I'm at right now, where this was a post that was made, and it shows a video of the prime minister here. He gives this presentation. He talks about how there's this new cryptocurrency that's out there, and the government has joined with this crypto agency so that everyone gets $100,000 worth of this crypto, right? And it seemed very real. It seemed so realistic because it was the person was talking, it was a video, and the thing is, it turned out to be a complete scam. So here in Armenia, there was lots of money that got lost by the people because they didn't think that this was fake. But of course, it was a deep fake. But most people here haven't been trained. They don't have any AI literacy. So that's why it's so important for us to develop this AI literacy within our students, but within all people. So because of that, I've created this trap test that I want to share with you here, which is another way to, again, implement AI and discuss AI to develop this AI literacy. So it's called a trap test. So each letter stands for something. So the first one is the first letter here is T. That stands for thinking critically. So critical awareness, question any digital text, audio, or video. It's a mindset of ensuring objective truth within reading, within seeing, within hearing. This is something that we have to make sure that everyone develops and has an understanding of that. Now, any type of digital content that we see could be completely made by AI. AI has gotten so good that it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to distinguish something that's made with AI to something that was made by a human. So that's why it's important for us to develop this type of AI literacy. So critical thinking, thinking critically, very important here. The next one, R, realistic, reliable, reputable. Does this seem real? Is it likely to be occurring? Is the source of this reliable and reputable? Is the source credible and trustworthy? So it's one thing for this to be a video that depicts the prime minister, but then we also have to develop this mindset, this understanding of, okay, now I'm going to look to see where did this come from? Was this just randomly pasted on Twitter, or did this come from an actual reputable place? Is this a reliable thing? And is this real? There was a tall tale sign in the video of the prime minister because in the video, he speaks fluent Russian, right? And when I showed this to a bunch of people, they're like, that's interesting. I didn't know that he spoke Russian that well. Because the thing is, in reality, he doesn't speak Russian that well. He speaks Armenian perfectly because he's Armenian, but Russian is his second language and he doesn't speak it that well. He can speak it, but not as fluently as what was in the video. So that was a key sign there that it wasn't realistic. The next one here, accurate and authority. Are all parts of the media accurate? Any consistencies? Does this correlate with other things we know? Is this source and authority? Again, another important thing. You might be able to catch some things that might be out of place. I just mentioned the language part, but what does this correlate with other things? Does this make sense for the government to connect with cryptocurrency? Are they doing this somewhere else? Is there another place that we can look at? Can we go to the actual government website? Are they saying the same thing? So we can compare between Twitter and Facebook and government website to see if it's all put together in the right way. Is there proper authority that's validating this? And then the last one here, P, purpose, propaganda. What is the purpose of this medium? Is it trying to sell me something, to change my view or vote? Is it propaganda, bias, and misleading? Is there more to the story? So that right there is a key part to understand, well, what are the motives behind this? Well, what's the actual purpose? By thinking about that, that would help us to prevent deception from occurring from an AI-created deepfake or some sort of synthetic information. Now, a big thing that I want you to take away from this is that this is information that everyone needs to have, regardless of what you think about AI, whether you don't like it. It doesn't matter, because we still have to ensure that we are helping students develop this type of AI literacy, because you could see how it's to their benefit so that they don't become deceived. They don't become a victim to deepfake, scam, or synthetic information. So again, that's why it's important for us to implement AI literacy throughout the educational process. And here's another one, assessment. Now, when we talk about assessment, we have to think that AI is a tool that's out there. AI is a tool that everyone has access to. And in all the surveys that I've done with students, a majority of them are using it in some way on their own. So that makes us, for sure, we have to think about this in that we need to adjust our assessments. We need to adjust our assignments. If I know that AI is out there and the students could use it, then I have to make sure that my assignments are structured in such a way that it's not so simple for an AI to simply do it, right? We want to incorporate AI when it's appropriate, when we make that decision, but we have to be thinking about assessments now in the age of AI. So that's why I created this infographic also. It's called the SHARE technique. So with this is specific things for us to consider to help us as we redesign our assignments and assessments. The first one is to make sure that our assignments now are stronger and more authentic, meaning that we're adding rigor, we're adding realism, and we're grounding it. When we do have them do writing, we make it more authentic, as opposed to just being an essay. Now it's an essay, but it's done in the form of a report. It's done in the form of a business report, an actual blog posting, an article, a case study, or other things that make it that much more of authentic thing, as opposed to just being an essay. And along with that, the aspects or the viewpoints that the students take in writing those things, that needs to be more and more grounded within the class itself. So that means if I ask an AI to write me an essay about something, well, it'll go through and look at its pre-trained information, but it'll be that much more difficult for an AI to write something if the assignment is based off of something that is grounded within the actual class. So this could be something like, hey, we did this example in class. I want you to write about this example. So the AI doesn't know about the example. I want you to write an essay about, or a report about this business professional that came and was a guest presenter in our course. Well, the AI wouldn't know about the guest presenter. They wouldn't know what the guest presenter stated, right? Events, original case studies that you as the instructor create, original handouts, all these things can be used to make the grounding of the information in that class that much more specific to your course, which makes it more difficult for the AI to be used to simply do it all. Now, again, AI could still be used in conjunction with, but this makes it that much more of a stronger and more authentic type of scenario for the student's assignments. So again, please take that into account. This next one, H, high price for false information. The idea here is that more points will be taken off for illogical, made-up information, hallucinated quotes, facts, citations, or references. This needs to be clearly stated on the rubric for attention to detail, credibility of the author document, logical consistency, flow, and displaying an understanding of the material. So one of the big issues that I see with a lot of instructors is that they have some students that they give an assignment, writing a report, writing an essay, and the students simply go to the AI feed in a prompt saying, hey, write me an essay about this, and then here it is, and the student turns it in. And now the instructor can clearly tell that this was written by the AI because there are hallucinations, there's some made up facts, there's some references at the end that are completely made up, don't even make sense. They might seem authentic, but if you go to that location, you'll find that, hey, it's made up completely. So the idea here is that we tell students up front, and we put this in the rubric, that, hey, I want you to know that in the past, I might have taken off maybe a point because, oh, this was the wrong website, or no, this fact was wrong. Well, now I'm going to take off much more because we are in the information age. You should clearly be able to check those links. You should clearly be able to make sure that this is proper facts and not something made up. So I've done that in my class. I've told them, I said, you're free to use AI, but if anything is wrong with that content, you're getting lots of points taken off. If anything is wrong with the references, if that's made up, hallucinated, you're getting lots of points taken off. Why? Because when you turn something in, when you turn in a report, that's your reputation on the line. If you turn in a report to your boss and all of it's made up because you used AI and you didn't even bother to check it, guess what? You're going to get fired. So I try to make things in my class as very realistic as possible. And I tell them there's a high price to be paid if you don't properly use a tool or a source of information. So this helps the students to realize, oh yeah, I have to go through this. I have to reread it. I have to go through the information. I have to verify. So even in that process, that helps them to learn the information that much more. So this is a clear thing that I definitely suggest for everyone. And along with that, what I also have my students do now is that whenever they write anything for me and I have them put in references, I tell them I want a link. No matter what, there needs to be a link there. Whether it is maybe it's a book that they got from the library, so there is no link to it. I say put in a link to Amazon. That's fine, but I want it to be a real link going to a real location so I can quickly go through and verify the information that you're putting within that reference. That seems to be really helpful as well. The next one here, A, for additional and or other assessment techniques. So many of us have relied on just writing for our assessments because that's been a great assessment tool in the past. I love writing. I think students learn a lot by going through the writing process. So I'm not saying to get rid of writing at all, but what I am saying is that we need to consider more dynamic assessment techniques in conjunction with writing, right? We have other possibilities such as student presentations, visual works, student podcasts, videos, in-class writing, in-class quizzes, group work, etc. Now, I want to make sure that I'm clear here on in-class writing. I do think that if you're teaching a writing class, you should have in-class writing, but it shouldn't be everything. It shouldn't take up the entire class. There should be some aspects of writing that's done in class, some other aspects that's done outside of class. There needs to be a proper balance, because if all I did in my class was in-class writing, that's not the way I write. I don't write anything by hand, right? But this is an important thing for the students to prove that they can do it in class. So again, different ways that we do that, there needs to be this proper balance. But using more dynamic assessment techniques, really, really important, and it should be done more. Even if you were to keep an essay, right? Let's say you have a 10-page essay. Well, what if you reduce that down to, say, a 7-page essay with a 5-minute presentation, where now the students have to know that information and be able to answer questions on the spot, a Q&A, to really prove that they know that information, they know that content. Again, different ways to make it more dynamic. So that's a good one there with A. The next one here, R, reflection, critical analysis of feedback. So this is critical writing on the feedback, assignment process, and what was learned experience, understanding of what, why, in class or out. The idea with this is that the student would, they might turn in an essay, and then when you give back that essay with your comments, they would have to reflect on that and then write about the feedback that they received. That could be done in class. Part of it could be done in class. Part of it could be done out of class. Many different ways of implementing this, but including a reflection aspect here of a real critical analysis would help them to understand that, yes, they need to know the material. They need to know the process of being able to interact with it and be able to properly do the assignment both in class and out of class. And then the final one here is E, expand the assignment into multiple pieces. So some of these components could be done in class as well. There needs to be a progression here so that you can see how someone develops. An example with this is a 7-step writing process. Where part of that is where they would turn in a rough draft. You could also require them to do track changes in their documents so that you can see how they modify. You could incorporate peer observations, feedback, different types of events where they have to present their information as they're going along. Another big one is an annotated bibliography. So this is where the students have to write in their references for what's within their writing, but they would have to also put in a reflection on that as far as, well, why did I use this? What was the purpose of using this reference? That makes them have to engage with the content that much more. And again, they have to be ready to answer questions about that live and in person as well. So lots of possibilities here. By using the share technique, we can improve our assignments overall in general. This is something that should have been implemented even before AI to make our assignments more dynamic, make our assessments more complete as well. So this is a great resource that I have this out there for you. Again, I've had lots of different instructors use this around the world, and they seem to get a lot of benefit from it as well. The big thing with all of this, remember, is that the idea isn't that now we're making something so that they can't use the AI. It's just that we're better able to decide when to use the AI. We can tell them, okay, we're going to do this in class, or you know what, this portion do out of class, use an AI tool for this, or use it in this way, have this sort of different levels of implementation. So again, it's up to you, but we have to remember that we're always trying to also teach AI literacy to our students so that they can have a better understanding of how to use it. I want to make sure that we end this presentation with a firm understanding of what we need to do as instructors so that we can succeed in this new world that we find ourselves, this AI world. The very first thing is that we have to develop our AI literacy skills. We have to take action so that we can develop those skills so that then we can develop our students' skills. If we don't have those skills and the students are already using AI, then we're going to be at a loss. We're going to be playing catch up this whole time. We need to develop those skills. And yes, you're totally right that, hey, it's the universities that should be giving us this training. It's great organizations like this one that are providing this type of certification courses. That's great. And you should take advantage of that as much as possible. But even if that didn't exist, it's still your responsibility to make sure that you're developing these skills, that you're doing what you can to learn more. Now, I've had some instructors complain, right, saying that, hey, I don't even know where to start because the AI keeps changing, it keeps modifying, it keeps improving all the time. Yes, that's very true. And that is something that we have to deal with. But the foundational knowledge of AI literacy, the things that I shared with you at the very beginning, those different AI concepts, that will never change. We will always need to have an awareness of what's going on. We will always need to be developing our capabilities in using the AI. We will always need to have knowledge of what's going on so that we're not deceived by these deep fakes. And we always need to make sure that we have critical thinking. We're always questioning, we're always asking, we're always thinking about the bias that might exist. We're always trying to prevent over-reliance, thinking about ethical implementations. Again, all these things are important. And again, that's what we can focus on, is building up our AI literacy overall. Little by little, we can continue to improve so that we can help our students as well. That's the key part here. The next part, maximize your human skills, right? Your human abilities to be the very best instructor. That means making sure that you have great verbal, nonverbal communication, empathy, motivation, social learning. These are all key things. There's this great he's a great educator. He's somewhat famous in the world of AI as well. His name is Donald Clark. And he just wrote up this nice little article just yesterday because of what ChatGPT came out with their new highly capable AI. And he posed this question as far as, because this AI is becoming such a powerful universal tutor, are instructors, are they becoming sort of deprecated in that we don't need teachers anymore? So he posed it kind of tongue in cheek, but my answer to that was no, not at all. Not at all, right? And I'll tell you why here. Because we've already been living in this information age. where we have information that's freely available to everybody at their fingertips, whether that's in books that are at libraries, whether that's the internet, so much information there, or YouTube. There's videos that explains just about everything. But yeah, people still need teachers. People still need instructors and professors. Why? Because they offer so much more. There's a huge difference between me sitting down and having to read through a book and trying to understand it, as opposed to me having an instructor that will help me with that. I've done the reading, and now I'm there with the instructor. Now we can have this discussion. Now I can feed off of the enthusiasm of this professional. That builds up my enthusiasm, so I'm motivated to learn. I'm motivated to learn, and with that comes this greater understanding, because we're able to bounce ideas off of each other. But the instructors that will succeed are the instructors that know this and incorporate this into their courses, meaning that their courses are much more than just someone showing up and giving a lecture, right? It's more than just presenting data. No, it's much more engaging. It's dynamic. It's me expressing myself in the right way with good verbal, nonverbal forms of communication, showing my enthusiasm, being motivated about the content, setting up situations where the students can not only learn, but also display their capabilities, meaning that, hey, they're giving presentations, they're asking questions, they're answering questions, they're actively engaged in this hands-on learning. So the more dynamic that we can make our courses, the more it'll be that much as a greater part of what we can do as real instructors, as opposed to what the AI can do. Sure, the AI will continue to develop, but again, that human aspect, that social learning component, that's where we maximize. So this human element is always going to be important, but the people that will succeed are the people that have these skills that I just mentioned right there. So that's something for us to continually work on, so that we can be the very best of that. And then finally, it's important to have this mindset and to be a lifelong learner. Yes, things will continue to evolve, so we need to continue to evolve along with it, continue to learn, continue to be part of this community of practice to help academia as a whole. Well, how do we do that? Well, we do that by doing this, what we're doing right here, being part of this conversation, being part of the learning. You're going through the certification course. Excellent. Kudos to all of you. Now continue on with that. Share that information with other instructors that weren't able to make it. Share that information in your Twitter posts, in conversations that you have with other people. Be part of the community. Join my YouTube channel so that you can gain more information as it comes out. Write comments, answer comments, be part of this overall community so that we can continue to learn from one another. And don't forget that the students are part of this as well, right? One of the big things that I do now is whenever I have an assignment, I tell them what the assignment is, I show them the rubric, show them an example, and then I sit down and have a conversation with them about AI. I ask them, okay, how could someone use AI to do this assignment? Now, is that going to be beneficial? Do you think that's too much? Let's tone it down. Maybe we could use AI for this component, but not for this component. So I work with them to come to an understanding together as far as how AI might be part of that assignment. Now, there are times when I say, no, we're not using any AI because I want you to learn this specific component here, foundational knowledge like we talked about. So it's important to think about that and incorporate the students, have them be part of this discussion, work with them so that together we can have the best educational experience possible. Okay, that was my presentation. I hope you got some benefit from all of that. Now I definitely want to hear from you. Please, what are your questions? And I will try to answer as fully as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, I see some questions that have come up. And Gohar, will you please kindly state the questions? Lots of Brent, I must commend you on a very informative. I learned a lot. And everybody in the chat, there's lots of thank yous and a great, insightful, informative session. And everybody's saying we learned a lot. And I truly, and your models that you have developed are worth sharing. And with your permission, we'll be sharing it in our resources as well. I think your framework for assessments was very powerful. And I think in the chat, lots of audience was actually talking about the worry between the teacher versus the AI. That's the debate, right? And I think your assessment document, actually, the framework puts that to rest in some ways. And I think you know, and most of us know, it's not an issue about AI. It's an issue of plagiarism that students do per se. I think it's that debate that AI has probably thrown, like so many other things, up into the air. And we have to rethink and sort of group ourselves as an educator and the competencies. So, if I can sort of ask Gohar to please unmute and ask the questions. Ji, Gohar.
We have Nuruddin from Habib University. She says that, hi Ben, thanks for the wonderful and insightful session. I was wondering in what ways instructors of in engineering and sciences courses can think about integrating AI.
Yeah, that's a great one. So the big thing is that, again, look at AI as an instructional designer, right? In that now we have that powerful tool as an instructional designer. So I could go in and ask the AI that question in itself. But remember to formulate the question so that you're using a more advanced prompt so that you can get a much better response. So I would ask the AI, I would form it this way. I would say, please act as a university level instructional designer who is also a professor in this course, and then put in your course, your science course, chemistry, whatever it is. And then from that, then ask it, how can I integrate AI better within my course? You could ask it a simple question like that. You could pose it where, hey, here's the assignment that I currently do. So you give it an example. Here's an assignment that I currently do. What are some ways that AI could be integrated with this? How can I make this so that students don't use AI for this? Or what might be some great points that we could come to a middle ground with using AI for some of this, using AI for maybe other aspects of it? So again, posing that question directly to the AI would be very beneficial there as well, because the AI can function as that powerful instructional designers to help with the implementation and for all of this as well.
Yes, Gohar.
Moving on, we have Hadika Suhail from AI University. She's asking how can we get a book on AI literacy by Dr. Enders. So she's asking about that.
That's your book, Brent, that
Oh,
you
yeah.
talked about. Yeah. So, is it available on the net, or do you have to buy it?
So it is available on the internet. This through Amazon. That's the distributor for it. But a lot of the content I talk about through my YouTube channel. So I break up different components. So if you go through YouTube through my channel, a lot of it is discussed there. I've given several presentations about AI literacy specifically from this book. There's one that I recently did in Germany at a big conference, and that's all captured there. So that would be a great resource as well.
Yeah. Excellent. I see that you have your link on your slides. So everybody will have the YouTube link, so not to
Yeah.
worry about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have Namuna Riaz. She has not mentioned the university name. I would suggest that you can do that, please. She's asking, can AI technology be
I
harnessed
can't
to...
hear you. Gohar, will you speak up? I don't know if others can hear him.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
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 Maimuna Riaz is asking that can AI technologies be harnessed to support student well-being and mental health within the academic environment?
Yeah, great question. And that's something that is being researched more and more, right? And there are some specific implementations of it. There are some what's called um, GPTs, right? So this is where someone structures the AI to use some specific information to help someone. So I could make one that is all about my book, and it'd be, the AI literacy imperative GPT. And then now you would interact with this AI, and it would give you specific information just from this book. It would be using, this is through ChatGPT, the paid version. It would be using ChatGPT, but the actual main content would come from that GPT. Now that would be a more correct implementation to use it in that way that you're talking about for mental health. The problem right now is that a lot of people are just using ChatGPT for mental health, which is great because it has all that information. But if they're formulating a prompt incorrectly, if they're not asking it the best type of questions, they might get information that isn't fully pertinent to their specific case. Again, mental illness is a complicated thing. So I think a human in the loop is very beneficial, to help someone ask the right type of questions. But having said all that, it is still very powerful that we have access to a tool that has all the knowledge ever made, basically dealing with mental health. But the problem comes in with people that don't have AI literacy, so they don't know about how to ask it the right question, the most appropriate question to address their specific need. Yeah.
I think you raised a very important point, Brent, that unless the whole context is laid out for Gen AI, whatever you're using, it will skip out certain information that might be vital to you. So, like your prompts were very, very specific. They laid out the context and they laid out the purpose of that, and then it becomes more powerful, definitely. Yeah.
Next, we have Abdul Samad from Islamia University, Bahawalpur. He's asking that how AI will give us contextual meanings which are mostly based on human emotions.
Mm. Yeah, that's a great question. So that's what it's continuing to try
Yeah.
and develop, right? In the demonstration that OpenAI did yesterday, it was very, very powerful. I have a video about that on my YouTube channel where I break it down and I talk about how this affects academia. So I encourage you to watch that as well. But one of the demos that they had was the guy picked up the phone because he's interacting with the AI, and he asked the AI, he said, can you look at my picture and tell me what I'm feeling right now? Right? That's really
Wow.
powerful. He asked the AI that, and the AI was like, sure, I can try that. And it went through and it said, okay, it looks like you're smiling. So that seems like you're happy, but the way that everything else seems, I think it's more about you being excited about a situation and event. So again, very detailed stuff. The AI is starting to do that more and more, but it's still not at, a human level. It's still developing that way. So we have to make sure that we don't overhype things with the AI as far as its capabilities. But what we need to do is to start testing it, start working with it, interacting with it, so that we can be proactive with the AI, and so that we're not just reacting to it once it comes out and it's fully developed. We have to start integrating it and thinking about how to best use it as we move forward. That's a great question.
So we have Hardika Suhail again asking about, people also ask how can we spot fake references in AI generated work, as you've also shown in one of the slides, and this was also asked by another faculty member.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is difficult because I've done lots of testing with it, and some of it will look very correct, right? It's like, hey, it says Rutledge there. That's a real publisher. This makes sense as far as the article name and that author. I've seen that author before, but sometimes it'll put in correct separate information and it'll put it together. So yeah. So the way that you address that, one, is you scare the student, right? By saying, hey, there's a huge price to pay. If there's one thing wrong with that, you're going to get a lot of points off, not just 1 point, but a lot. So that's part of that share technique. And then the other big thing I said there is to put a link. That way, you can always easily and quickly just click on it so that you can check it as well. So that's what I do for all of my assignments. I might not check every single one, but I ensure that they all have links so that I can quickly go and check, so I can spot check to make sure. Having that combination of high price to pay and having links for everything makes it that much easier.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have a question related to publications. It's Tehrima Iftikhar from GC University. She's asking that is there any permissible limit agreed by academic community for the use of Chat GPT in writing of publications?
Right, that's a great question, and that has come up a lot. It's a complicated answer for this because I've gone through and I'm actually preparing a video that talks about this. I've gone through and I've started to look at different journals. And if you look there deep within the guidelines, it will now, more and more of them will start to have information about use of AI. Uh, some of them are somewhat okay with it. Some of them are very strict and they say, no, don't write any of it with AI. So it's something that's being debated, and every guide is going to be completely different. Every journal, you'll have to check with them to see what they specifically said. But I'm also very interested in what other people think about this. I was lucky enough that we had this this guy come here, and he had published a lot dealing with science, a lot of stuff dealing with science. And he came here, gave a presentation, and at the end he allowed questions. So I asked him this question directly. I said, "Hey, now that we have AI, what are your thoughts as far as AI writing the research, meaning that I tell it my findings, I tell it certain things, and the AI helps me to write the content?" You know what he said that I found very interesting? He said, "So what?" Very, very blunt, right? He said, "So what?" He said that when you turn in that paper, when you turn in that document, your reputation is on the line. Every single thing within that document better be 100% true. I don't care who wrote it. I don't care who put it together. The big thing is that your name is going to be on there. So you have to be able to back it up. Every single bit of research, every percent sign, everything you will have had to have verified before you turn that in. Because if you don't, then guess what? It's going to be rejected, one. And if it doesn't get rejected, your community will be very much against you. You won't be able to present at conferences. You won't be able to get published in other places. So he was very adamant that there's a big thing that goes along with the accountability aspect. So I tend to lean more towards that. The person turning it in better know the content. They better be the ones that are have ultimate responsibility for everything. So an accountability aspect is the main part that I look at for that.
Moving on, next we have a question from Lebanese American University, Ms. Nairi. She's saying that thank you for a great talk, and how can we use AI in the assessment of student writing?
Right. So there's a couple of different things here, right? And again, this is another debated field. You can turn in your essay to an AI. Um, there's a couple of different things here. First of all, let's look at it from the student perspective, right? So I have another video that talks about how students can use AI ethically. And this is a key thing. If I were to just give my essay right now to the AI and say, "Hey AI, can you give me feedback on my essay?" Do you know what it'll do? It'll give me some quick initial feedback, and then it'll completely rewrite it for me. That's what it would do right now if I just submitted my essay. But if I submit my essay, and again, because I have AI literacy, I use an advanced prompt formula, and I say, "Hey AI, please act as my professor in this course. I'm going to feed you my essay, and I want you to give me feedback based off of this." And then I fill in the rest of that with my rubric, right? I say based off of the rubric. In fact, now you could even say based off of the rubric, which I will give you, and then you can give it an actual file now, a PDF of it. And then you have to say, you continue on with that and say, "Give me feedback that I can use to improve my essay based off of that rubric, but do not rewrite it for me," right? I have to be very specific with that. And so then it would give me feedback the same way that if I gave it to somebody else, a friend of mine, and I gave him the rubric and said, "Give me some feedback," right? It'd be the same thing. But I have to be very careful in that within my prompt, I say, "Do not rewrite it for me." Otherwise, I breach an ethical aspect there. Now, so that's one way that a student can use it for their own sort of pre-assessment. If we're talking about an instructor using it, it can be done. It can be done, but again, this is a subject of debate because some feel that, well, if I'm giving this content to the AI, well, then I don't know my students anymore. I'm not the one grading them, so now I don't know about them, right? That's an argument. So that's just something for us to really contemplate. There are in-between aspects where I could have the AI grade a portion of it, an aspect of it. Maybe part of the rubric is done by the AI, part of it is done by me, all sorts of different possibilities, right? The other big thing that if you are going to go that route, a couple of things that you need to know. Number one, safety of the data, right? Personal information should never be fed into the AI. So if this is a personal narrative essay that the student wrote where they're expressing themselves, we need to be very careful about that. The other thing is, what about the students? Are they going to give you permission to do this? Is that okay? Do you need to get the permission? So again, those are some ethical aspects to consider as far as how I'm using their content and putting it into an AI. So data safety, data security, make sure names aren't being put in there. We have to always protect the student. So going past the ethical aspects, now if you're actually going to implement this, this is the way that you would do it. This is bonus material, okay? So I'm not telling you to do this, but I'm telling you that if you do this in the right way. So number one, data safety, protect your students. The next one, when you put it in there, you would have to give it a prompt saying, hey, I want you to give me an overall assessment of this following essay based off of this rubric. And then, give me an evaluation based off of what it is that you have for your evaluation for your rubric. When you put it in there, you'll say, do this for the following essay. You put in the essay and it'll give you a great result. It works really well, right? You always have to verify it. You need to check it. Otherwise, it might be wrong. What if a hallucination happens? So you need to check it, at least go through it briefly to make sure it correlates. You have that. But then the other thing you have to understand is that all the AIs I've tried, they have something called drift that can occur. So this means that within my conversation, if I give it this essay, after about 2, maybe 3 essays, it'll start to drift in its ability to evaluate based off of the rubric. So in my testing, after about 2 or 3, it will start to vary, and it won't be as effective as for assessment. So what you can do then is to do 2 or 3, and then start a new conversation with the AI, start a new chat with it, and then go through the process once again. Again, always be wary of protecting your students, protecting your information, and again, ethical considerations to consider. Now, there's also an in-between, another in-between here where I can use the AI to say, hey, give me a bunch of statements that I can use for students that have this type of problem. So it can help you by creating matrices of, okay, if they have this problem, I can copy this and put this in here, and then I can modify it. That's sort of a time saver that the AI could be used with. Another thing would be the second pair of eyes. So I've done all the grading, but now I have a couple that I'm not sure of. So now I could feed it into the AI, again, protecting the information, and then get a second opinion. So again, there's different ways. Nothing should be an absolute with AI, but again, always consider the ethics of it and make sure that you're checking, you're verifying. Yeah, great question. Complicated answer.
Yeah. I know, Brent, when you talked about the AI shifting, I think that's the word you used. It's true. After certain repeats, you feel that your AI has lost it and you have
Yeah.
to again sort of restart with a question. But the point that you make about safeguarding the information, we will cover it also later. But I have realized that we sometimes, when we put in a prompt, we use our own name, our university name, our own sort of personal information, and that's a no-no. So I agree that has to be guarded because that feeds into the data and can be troublesome at some stage. We still do not know lots of implications.
Right.
So I think next questions, go ahead. I see there are
Moving
lots of
on.
questions.
Yeah, moving on, I would share a comment first from the Central University, NG, ma'am NG. She says that I find it troublesome that few are talking about the intellectual property and data protection of students. Generative AI is learning from humans. We accept it, but we don't seem to look too far into how we are also feeding it personal information. She has made this
Yeah,
comment.
that's a great comment, and that's something for us to be aware of, right? That's an ethical aspect with the critical thinking component of AI literacy. And within different AIs, they use what the content that you put into it, they use it in different ways. So with ChatGPT, now you can go in and select that, hey, you don't want your information to be saved, you don't want it to be used by them. So there are different settings that you can check with, but that's a big thing that different AIs function completely differently. There's some AIs out there that will totally resell your information, give it away, all sorts of things. So you have to be careful with that. Also, there are plenty of AIs that are working to remove information that it was trained on before that was proprietary information from some other group. So there's lots of, excuse me, there's lots of different court cases going on right now to try and come up with sort of the best solution for now. So yeah, that is an important ethical consideration.
We have a question from Shashank from Aga Khan Education Service India. He's asking that is it possible that ChatGPT content can have copyright issue?
Right. So that kind of goes along with the last one, right? Um, ChatGPT, OpenAI specifically, they have come out and said that they will protect people if there was something that resulted in a court case, right? So this is something that OpenAI has directly come out with. But it is always important to make sure that you check the specifics when you sign up to look at what it says. And this is another reason why it isn't the best way of working by just copying AI and saying, yeah, that's my stuff, right? Now you have to make proper declarations and saying, if I use an AI completely and I don't modify anything, well, then you might consider making some statements saying that this was done with the use of AI, or AI helped me to write some of this, if it's something that's substantial, right? In order to avoid some sort of copyright issue. But going back before, this is another big debate in education, right? And I'm on one side of this, so this is something for all of you to consider. If I take an essay, or if I go to my AI and I say, write an essay about this topic, and it creates something, there's going to be an argument saying, oh, you plagiarized if I take it and turn it in. What I tell instructors is, don't use the word plagiarism. Don't use that. Don't open up that can of worms. That's the English expression, right? Don't open up that can of worms, because I will have a great argument to say, no, that's not plagiarism. This didn't exist until I fed that prompt, and then it generated this. I worked with the computer to create this content that's brand new, and now I'm turning it in. So I'm saying that it's mine. So the fact that you're saying that's plagiarism, now we have an argument. What I do suggest, though, is to remove that argument by saying, if I'm the instructor, and this is what we have as policy at my university, if I'm the instructor and I tell you, hey, you can't use AI to create the content for you to turn in for this essay. I want it to be original work done completely by you. You can use it for feedback maybe, or you can use Grammarly just to help you with some words, but I don't want you to have the entire essay created by AI. Now I'm giving you that specific instruction. So now if you were to do that, it doesn't matter whether we have an argument about plagiarism, you cheated. That's different. That's a completely different thing. Now we don't have to argue about it being plagiarism or not. The fact that you use this AI tool when you weren't allowed to by the instructor, that completely negates the argument of plagiarism, and we can focus on that's academic dishonesty because you did something that the instructor said you can't do for this assignment. So that's the way that I try to help people to address the situation directly, so it doesn't get bogged down in ethics grievance committees and all this, because the instructor, they should be empowered to decide, well, when is AI going to be used and in what way? So that's a key part for that. Good question. Go on.
Moving on, we have Emmeline from the American University of Nigeria. She's asking if AI can provide opinions about student papers. Does that make the services of a writing center redundant?
Great question, right? This is an ongoing thing with going back to what the story that I shared with you about Donald Clark and asking if teachers are redundant, right? My answer to that is no, absolutely not. We still have a major human component. Now, the real power comes in is where we can have instructors, where we can have people from the writing centers work with the AI. Now I can use the AI and tell the student, hey, in between our sessions, you can use it to practice. You can use it to get feedback. But when I come here and you talk to me, now I can ask you questions. We can interact. We can have a full discussion where we can go to the root of the matter and develop this so much more. I think students will have so much more capability because now they can work with the AI, they can work with the instructor, and together we can have the best educational experience possible. So it's a matter of working together with the tool.
Brent, just to say there are lots of questions that are sort of in the chat and they're keeping on and on. Are you okay if you continue? I mean, I'm very cautious that about your time. There are quite a
Yeah,
few that
no,
are still
I
there.
have about 30 more minutes, so I still have some
Okay,
time.
great. So people who have questions, feel free to ask because they're still 240 with us, and that shows the interest and how delighted they are. Their repeated
Great.
comments about how powerful this session has been. G. Gohar, we can continue.
Next, we have something related to research. Ms. Farhanda Anjum is asking what tool of AI is best and easy to use for research students?
Yeah. So there are a lot of great tools that are out there. If you go to that listing from the very beginning from the CLT, right? They have some different tools in there that are available specifically for research.
Yeah,
Elicit is one that comes to mind. Now more and more, you'll be able to use the big three for your research as well. Now that you have the ability to submit a PDF to the AI, if you submit that tool, you submit the PDF, now you could pose a question to the AI about that PDF. So if I have a research article that I'm interested in, I could pose it to it and then ask questions about it. There are some other tools out there like Elicit that do that automatically, and it's sort of a nice, easy interface for it. So there's lots of tools that are out there available for that. But even the big three will also help you with that. But definitely go to those resources that are listed there from the CLT.
I have also seen that Perplexity works very well. Elicit
Yeah.
and Perplexity are great in research. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
and that's because you can feed it an actual file and then ask
Right.
questions about it. But
Yes.
now ChatGPT should be able to do that too with their
Oh,
new
really?
model. Yeah.
Okay, great. There is one about how do these tools handle data privacy and security concerns. Just to say that we will have a session. I think our next session is precisely about ethics
Right.
of AI. So some of these concerns that you are stating are very important, but perhaps they can wait for the next session.
Okay.
I would rather that we took questions which are specifically about tools and AI resources. Ji, Gohar.
Next, we people are also asking about the research. Miss Mahidaya I, from FCCU is asking that recently I got to know about Research Rabbit. I think so. This will link to the previous
Yeah,
one to make
yeah.
bibliography. Can you comment on it?
I'm sorry, we'll say the question again.
Research Rabbit, that's also in our resources, CLT resources. Yeah. So I think that was helpful too. I have noticed that when I am a bit flummoxed about a tool, what it can do, I put it in Chat GPT or Gemini and say, oh, how can this tool help me? So most of
Right.
the questions that you're asking, your Gemini will be able to answer it for you. Gee. Next one, go ahead.
We had a question from Miss Sylvia Machado from Foreman. She was asking that, but how we can rely on the technologies that detect the use of AI for assessments when AI
Mm,
software flag the Bible as written by AI?
yeah. So there's a lot, and I could do a whole other session on AI text detection, right? So a couple of different things. There's lots of different tools that offer AI text detection. And there's huge variance in their capabilities, right? So that's step number one to understand is that unless you have a very good tool, it's not going to be very effective just in general. Now, Turnitin is one that's kind of towards the top, right? There are several out there. Turnitin is pretty good, but one of the big things that have come out from the research is that hey, there's a lot of false positives that come from Turnitin if you're dealing with someone that has English as an additional language. So if English is their second or third language, then there's lots
Yeah.
of false positives that come up because it's not being able to understand the differences. And there's also issues with, well, someone that doesn't have English as a primary language will probably write a bit more structured, more like an AI would write. So that's one thing. The other thing is this aspect of Grammarly, right? So if I used Grammarly to help me in my essay, well, some of those sentences might have been restructured by Grammarly, and now I have that within my essay, and now it's going to be picked up as AI text detection. So you have that. But the big thing, the big research says that it's just not as reliable as it can be. So now we have to take a step back and think, okay, well, now what can we do? Well, now we have to go back to what I talked about with the share technique in that there's other components for our assessment. Are you requiring a rough draft? Are you doing some in-class writing so you can see what the writing is really like? Are you having them do version history so you can track changes so that you can see their movements within their actual process of writing? So there's a lot of different things we can do besides AI text detection. Now, having said that, because this is really important, let's say I have an essay, I run it through an advanced text detector, and it says 100% that this was written by that student. Well, 100% isn't really 100%. It's 100% based off of that. But all this is an indicator. It's not proof. It's not really evidence. It's just an indicator. I have to make sure that I have other indicators, and I get that from looking at, oh, here's their rough draft, and it's kind of maybe a C paper, and now all of a sudden the final thing is an A+ paper and looks absolutely nothing like this paper. That's an indicator, right? But even then, I need to now approach it, and I need to come to the student and have a discussion with the student. Not an accusation, but a discussion so that we can figure this out. Before all of this occurred, I need to be sure that I am clear and upfront in my class about AI use, what is allowed, what is not allowed. I need to make sure that I develop their AI literacy so that they're using tools effectively so that we can try to prevent this as much as possible. There's an infographic I made about this as well, and a video, so please use that as a resource.
I think we are ready to wrap up. There are some more questions coming in, but I think that your PowerPoint slides answer a lot of those questions as well. And
Great.
again, the debate about AI versus the human thing. But I think with Gemini, with the 4.0 Omni coming in, I think implications are far more deep and still not as solved in our mind. We all know that when technology or anything advances, the human part of the lag, which we call the cultural lag, becomes very pronounced. And by the time we're trying to meet up that gap, technology advances even further. So somehow we're always a step behind technology. But like Brent, you said, that, and that is the crux of your talk, that a lot of issues of what we call plagiarism or cheating, and like you said, plagiarism is not the right word. Uh, and there are ways to cite what you use in AI. When I write something, I also say that this was I had it double checked for this thing with AI or something, and you cite, and there are ways of citing that, and we'll share that you by and by. But what is very important is that there should be, number one, like Angie said, there should be some institutional guidelines for a start, so that we, as a community of educators, are on the same page. Out of that, we have to derive our own classroom guides, and they can be, because the language always of a bigger policy will give you that leeway to make some rules for your own class. And those are the rules that will tell you, or the guides, this how to assess the student and what the student has to do if something happens, and what's the accountability. So those are the things that become very important in an education setting. I must say that though many of you think that AI will take over the human mind, I think it is challenging the human mind. We have to concentrate more on critical thinking and becoming critical and creative about how we go around our own thinking, and a lot of reflection, perhaps. And perhaps it can only make us better if we try to work with it. And so, for the tools, I think in the end, the question you need to ask yourself, that this is a new tool, and you usually should ask that, how do we plug this in to our work? I think the question to ask is, this is the educational goal we have. This is the available technology. Now, which technology will help us achieve our goal better? And I think that is the question that stays uppermost in our mind. And while I say goodbye, I think we have a last slide to share about our. Gohar, could you put the last slide on for the thank you? I have a whiteboard on, somebody's whiteboard. Uh, I'm sorry for this delay. I'll put. This was if we go back. Oh my God, Gohar, if you stop doing it, I will do it. Right? I'll do it now. There are a couple of resources that we want to share with you, and we're leaving in the end with some. These are the resources. If you see here, we have resources developed by deciding if you need to use a tool, and this is a diagram of a decision tree that actually helps you think through if you need to use a specific tool for the purpose that you have, precisely what I was talking about. Then finding the right tool for the right task, there's the AI Scout and future tools, please explore that. Then there's a listing of AI tools, and we have a very good listing, which by free tools, and they are by task. And we have even a briefer version, which is totally tuned to your task and offer some tools. And then, of course, you have to assess the tool on specific criteria. And I think, Brent, you talked about that as well. And there's one by, I think, Philippa Hardman that talks about the evaluation rubric. And she gives a 7 or 8 point rubric about assessing the quality of the tool that you are using. But your resources, Brent, I think will be the most powerful. We will share your YouTube link with everybody. And when we send out your video and your, slides. And cannot thank you enough, Brent. It was a very, very insightful session. I learned a lot. And I must thank you on behalf of each one of those who is with us. And there are 200 plus now with us still. And there were at some point, I think more than 300 that joined us. So, and from all over the world. And we are very, very thankful to all of you. Thank you so much, Brent.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.